Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce Galaro Yunupingo to introduce the leader of the opposition, Tony Abbott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good of you you have come. It's a long way to come, isn't it?
It's a long way. But it's a good one.
Yeah. And a bit tight here.
Yeah.
Yeah. With people like these faces here and outside, we make it tighter. It's good. It's good for the meeting.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
We welcome you.
Thank you.
We welcome you. Sit down. We welcome you. We welcome you very much to this part of the country. And your first visit to Garma place. This is Gulka. You will remember that you are the guest to Ganbulabula. Ganbulabula, the spirit man of this country. And he's a great man, and he welcomes you to his country. We'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things. First thing that we have been talking about here, about the land and the land ownership of the Aboriginal people. And you are aware of what that means. You will aware of what that means is that it means a lot of things. And a lot of countrymen of the politicians know land rights very well. But land rights in Aboriginal world is now something that we only say. We say that it is only a word that flicks in the mind of the Aboriginal people, and it's now the land rights is somewhat dead. Not quite dead. It's laying down. It's laying down still, and nobody's bothered to wake him up. Yes? You know that. Nobody has dared to wake him up. Your government, his government, his government. Well, all the government through the years who have been sitting in Canberra has sat there and has not bothered about the land rights. They have talked about land rights. We'll talk about it, but we won't do anything about it. And that doesn't mean that it means something to Aboriginal people. I would like to bring something out to you and to you notice while you're here that the land rights, as we know it, must be woken up. If you are the Prime Minister tomorrow, yes, yes. If you're the Prime Minister tomorrow, please remember.
Only one voice, that's not too bad.
Please remember one thing. One thing you must remember for what I have said. I have said to you that you must wake up this land rights to another phase. And that another step of the land rights is to wake it up to another phase so that it'll be something like Aboriginal people enjoying it every day, not only once a year. It's been a land rights to Aboriginal people for 50 years, and that's all it is. And that's really nothing in it. You will know that. There's nothing in it. Aboriginal people, every Aboriginal ownership to land ownership owns nothing in land rights. Now we are asking you as a new leader, and I hope that you become a new leader. And when you do become a new leader, one thing you must do is to wake this land rights up. Wake it up and have a look at it the way that the Prime Minister should have a look at it. And for us, it'll be enjoyed by Aboriginal people of the Northern Territory. It'll be the greatest thing that ever happened to us. You must look at it in a way that Aboriginal people will enjoy it. Enjoy it every day and not just every moment. Not just the time that you announce it and then forget about it. You must enjoy it and enjoy it every moment of the day. That must be the case to Aboriginal people who owns the land rights. That's all I wanted to say to you. Please remember that this is very, very important, and you will remember that my point here is something that I must raise with you once again. I will. Thank you.
Galaroi, thank you so much for making me welcome on Yolnu land. Thank you so much for that passionate and heartfelt plea. I acknowledge the Yolngu people. I acknowledge that this is Yolngu land. I pay my respects to elders past and present. But I basically want to say thank you to you, Galarrwuy, and to all the Yolngu people for making me welcome here today. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who has made the effort to travel up here to the Garma festival. I do have a prepared speech, and I'm wondering whether I shouldn't just dispense with the prepared speech and talk to you from my heart, because Galarrwuy has spoken from his heart to me, and the least I can do is do my best to reciprocate. Look, we're all on a journey. We are all on a journey, individually and as a nation, and as peoples and communities and families. We are all on a journey. Where we want it to lead is to a country where all of us can realise our dreams, where all of us can be ourselves, all of us can come closer to being our best selves. That's only going to happen if each one of us as Australians becomes better in the years to come than we have always been in the years that have been at opening our hearts to one another. Very, very important that white fellas and black fellas open their hearts to one another. And what that requires is not just fine talk, not just academic studies, not just the writing of endless words, important though that is. What that requires is a new engagement between black and white people, such that we can walk forward into the future arm in arm together as brothers and sisters. That's what this requires. Now, Galarrwuy, you asked me about land rights. Land rights are very important. Aboriginal people derive so much of their sense of self, their sense of peoplehood from the land. You have a connection with the land, a deep and ancient, multi-generational connection with land, which people like myself have probably long lost. But I do appreciate how important it is to you. I do appreciate how significant it was when former governments gave land rights to the Aboriginal people of Australia. Our challenge, as you say, is to make land rights more real in the future than it has been in the recent past. It is all very well having the right to live on your land, having the right to walk over your land, having the right, if necessary, to exclude people from your land, but land has to be an economic asset as well as a spiritual asset, and I will do whatever I humanly can in government to bring this about, should we win the election. But most of all, I want to talk today about this new partnership between black and white Australian that I hope to foster should I find myself in government after the 7th of September. And if I may, as this is my first time on Yolngu land, give you something of my personal story. Like so many people growing up on the North Shore of Sydney in the 1960s, I had no contact whatsoever that I was aware of with Aboriginal people. My first contact was on the banks of the Fitzroy River in Rockhampton after what would these days be described as schoolies. Bunch of school kids from Sydney. We were broke, we were hungry and we were thirsty. Well, a bunch of local Aboriginal people turned up, and the thing that struck me more than anything else was their generosity, because they willingly shared their food and, more importantly, their drink with those thirsty kids from Sydney. But ever since then, I have been doing everything I can to try to deepen my involvement and my engagement with the First Australians. When I was a new Member of Parliament, I travelled regularly to Alice Springs and to some of the communities around Alice Springs, such as Hermansburg. In particular, I would try to take the time and learn from the experience and the insights of Charlie Perkins, one of Australia's great Indigenous leaders of an earlier generation. And then, once I became a minister, I tried to ensure that every year I spent at least a week actually in some of the more significant Indigenous communities for which I had substantial responsibility. And yet by 2007, despite then 14 years in the Parliament, despite then 9 years as a minister, I figured out that I'd visited dozens and dozens of Aboriginal places, but never spent more than 18 hours in a single one of them. So with Noel Pearson's help, I tried to rectify that situation. In 2008, I spent 3 weeks as a teacher's aide in Cowan in Cape York, working in the local school. In 2009, I spent 10 days as a truancy assistant in Arakoon on Cape York, working with the truancy team. In 2011, I spent 3 days as a builder's mate on a bush building project near Hopevale on Cape York. And last year, myself and a team of people, including, I'm pleased to say, Warren Mundine, who's in the audience today, and Elizabeth, who's in the audience today, Elizabeth Henderson, we spent 4 days helping to refurbish the library of the local school at Arakoon. The problem, if I may say so, between white Australia and Aboriginal Australia is not lack of goodwill. It's not lack of money. But in recent times, it's been lack of engagement. Now, I shouldn't say that to you, because every one of you, by your presence here, has indicated a deep and sincere desire to engage meaningfully with Aboriginal people. You're perhaps 400 here in this gathering. There's probably going to be 1,000, maybe 2,000 here at Garma over the next few days. Over the 15 years that this festival has been going, maybe some 30,000 people have been here. That is great. That is a tribute and a credit to everyone who's made the long trip here. But it's not enough. There's 23, 24 million of us, and all of us need to engage better and more deeply with Aboriginal people if the soul of this country is to be made whole as it should be. So my pledge, should I become Prime Minister, is that I will not neglect spending a week a year in an Indigenous place so that I can sit down with people and talk to them in their country, not simply in my office building and in my Parliament House, that I can learn from my own experience what it is like to live in a remote Aboriginal place, that I can sense something of the heart and soul of the people who live in places like this and who still have the beating heart of tradition, who still have everything that makes up the living cultures, the oldest living cultures in our world, in our universe. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do, Galarrwuy. And why not, if you will permit me? Why shouldn't I if you will permit me, spend my first week as Prime Minister, should that happen on your country. Now, I know there'll be people who say, "You're Prime Minister, you can't do that. You're goofing off. You're not doing your job." But the fact is, if these places are homes to the first Australians, why shouldn't they be home, even if only for a few days, to the Prime Minister of our country? And why shouldn't the Prime Minister of our country, and why shouldn't the senior officials of our country be prepared to devote a week a year, just 1 week, to an overwhelming focus on the issues of Indigenous Australia? Surely that is not too much to ask of our government, of our Prime Minister, of our senior officials. So Galarrwuy, I believe things will be different if there is a change of government. I've said before, let me repeat it, it is my hope that I could be not just a Prime Minister, but a Prime Minister for Aboriginal affairs. The first, I imagine, that we've ever had. I will have, as well as that, a Minister for Aboriginal Affairs in the Cabinet, in Nigel Scullion, who's a regular visitor here at Garma and is here today. What's more, Indigenous programs and policy will come within the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, because Indigenous policy and programs should not be an add-on, they should not be an afterthought, but they should be at the heart of a good Australian government. But I don't want to stop there. Too often, Indigenous policy has been white fellas turning up in black places and dispensing their wisdom and announcing their decisions. I'm not saying that government can abdicate its responsibilities in every respect to locals. Of course it can't. Empowered communities, yes, I believe in them. But government has a job, and as far as I'm concerned, government must do its job effectively and well. We must govern the country rather than subcontract that job out to others. But I do want to make sure that the decisions of any government that I lead are fully informed by people who know Aboriginal policy, who know Aboriginal issues and have lived an Aboriginal life in all of its ups and downs, in all of its different circumstances. That's why I'm very proud to say today that the chairman of the Prime Minister's Indigenous Council, should I be elected, will be Warren Mundine, who's sitting here in the front row today. Now, I've known Warren for a long time. Along with Noel Pearson, Warren and I have been on a journey together. I've got to say, Warren, when it comes to Indigenous things, you've taught me far more than I'm sure has been the reverse. I want that journey to continue. I want us to walk this path as brothers, as people of like mind but different political traditions. Because while I'm proud that the first Aboriginal member of our National Parliament was a Liberal, Senator Neville Bonner, and while I'm proud that the first Aboriginal member of the House of Representatives was also a Liberal, my friend Ken Wyatt, I don't believe that Indigenous policy or Indigenous people should belong to either side of politics. That's why I want us, Warren, you and I want us, I want you and me to walk down this path together as brothers, because I am confident that the decisions that government make will be so much better if they are informed much more than ever before by the lived experience of Aboriginal people. There is a lot to do. There is so much to do. Yes, as my friend Noel Pearson was saying yesterday here, we need to empower communities. We sure so need to empower communities. But we can't really empower communities without also empowering the individuals, the people, the families that make them up. You know, Galarrwuy, that in some respects, particularly here in the Territory, we've had a lost generation. A generation, maybe even 2 generations. Kids didn't go to school. Adults didn't go to work. The ordinary law of the land didn't apply. Women cowering in their houses or in their huts in fear of what some drunken relative might do. Men who should have been looking after people, instead sometimes a deadly threat to them. Well, empowerment starts when the kids go to school, when the adults go to work, and when everyone is safe in his or her own community. And whether the kids go to school, whether the adults go to work, and whether there is effective policing will be the test of success of an incoming government. We will know that reconciliation has been achieved when Aboriginal people have the same educational attainments, the same life expectancy, and the same employment prospects as everyone else. We will know that reconciliation has been achieved when Australians understand that their Indigenous heritage, that the Indigenous heritage that all of us now share in, is just as important as the British heritage that came ashore in 1788. The interesting thing is the Indigenous heritage is living and evolving with us, whereas that heritage was something that happened in the past. So it's a long journey that we're on. It's a long journey that we've got ahead of us. And speaking of journey, I should conclude by acknowledging the fact that the recognised people have come a long way. And it's great to be here at the Garma Festival. I want to say that as far as I am concerned, one of the most important things that any new government could achieve would be the final recognition of Indigenous people in the Australian Constitution. As far as I am concerned, and I'm speaking now as a Conservative, the great unfinished business of the constitutional process back in the 1890s, the great gap in what was done then was that it didn't involve a single Aboriginal person. And yes, that failure was a failure of those times. But our duty, our responsibility, is to remedy the failures of the past according to the best standards of these times, which we like to believe are better standards than those times. Because as time goes by, we do understand better. We do know more. Hopefully our hearts are more opened to our brothers and sisters. As far as I am concerned, Indigenous recognition would not be changing our Constitution, but completing our Constitution. And until this is done, our country will not be whole. Should there be a change of government, there will be a lot to do. There will be border protection issues to address. There will be budget issues to address. There will be all sorts of questions that need as a matter of urgency to be addressed. But within 12 months, we will publish a proposal for constitutional recognition, and we will establish a bipartisan process to try to bring that about as soon as possible. This should be a great unifying moment for our country, a unifying moment perhaps to surpass the 1967 referendum or the national apology. Let us hope so. It's more important to get it right than to rush it, but by God, we will have failed if we do not do it. Because until we do it, our country will be torn, our country will be incomplete. If we do it well, and I believe we are capable of doing it well, then more fully than at any other time in our history, black and white people can march as brothers and sisters, arm in arm, into a brighter future. Thank you very much indeed. It is a great honour to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the great words. And you have made a great track of the issues that is very close to us, particularly the Constitution and the land rights. I would like to just say to you that Constitution is one particular thing, and it must be said to you as a man who can be trusted and who can take the issue to further as you can. Thank you very much, and I will be around. I'll be around to tell you that is the case. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just asked the media just to clear this space. Mr. Abbott is going to move over here to just mingle and make a little bit of a chit-chat over here to the left, so if you wouldn't mind just keeping this passageway a bit clear, please.